Supervisors are on the front line when it comes to enforcing the regulations on alcohol and substance abuse. In fact, regulators consider this so important that supervisors are required to receive 60 minutes of training on alcohol abuse and an additional 60 minutes of training on substance use. A supervisor's guide to reasonable suspicion testing can be a significant part of that training. The program features several examples of situations where a supervisor must send a driver for reasonable suspicion testing. You'll see a supervisor confronting a driver who is drinking on the job. You'll see how another supervisor handles a driver whose behavior is suddenly different from the norm. And you'll learn about the important regulatory requirements for ordering a reasonable suspicion test. Experts in the field of substance abuse describe the observations that supervisors must make before reporting drivers and provide important guidelines for approaching drivers who must be tested. Supervisors already have busy work days and considerable responsibility, and they may feel that observing drivers and ordering testing takes a lower priority than their other day-to-day tasks. Fact is, since reasonable suspicion testing is required by regulation, it's simply not a choice. They must act when necessary, no matter what else is on their plate at the time. A Supervisor's Guide to Reasonable Suspicion Testing shows supervisors that these observations can be made during the course of normal work, and that sending a driver for testing, while not pleasant, can be handled in a professional and effective way. After viewing this program, supervisors will better understand the regulations, be better prepared to act when necessary, and have useful examples of ways to protect your company, your employees, and the driving public from drivers who abuse alcohol and use illegal drugs. Using this DVD as part of an effective training program for supervisors not only helps meet your regulatory requirements, it may actually help save someone's life.
Reasonable suspicion is a question that comes up frequently with supervisors. I feel that the key point about it is to really know the people that you're supervising and to know them on a personal level, because what you're really looking for is a deviation from what is normal for that person. And so being able to interact with them on a daily basis and kind of know about their interests and their children and what's going on in their life, so that when changes do occur, you're able to kind of compare it to something.
Some of the things that would clue me into suspicious behavior would be definitely a strong sense of, a smell of alcohol, glassy eyes, red bloodshot eyes maybe, looking very, very worn out, tired. Definitely a change of behavior would definitely be, where he is acting a certain way and never acted that way before. That would definitely be a sign.
Say a person comes in and they are very short-tempered, being aggressive, when that's not the employee's usual behavior, but a cluster of behaviors that are observable: excessive thirst, glassy-eyed, essence, the smell of leftover alcohol, the smell of leftover marijuana, a change in behavior that is not typical of this employee.
As a supervisor, you should be aware of changes in appearance, changes in maybe a driver's behavior, obvious things as maybe an odor. Those should be some examples or tips that would ask some questions if maybe a driver is under the influence of something.
There's quite a few different observations that we train our supervisors on, and each of our supervisors are given a card so that they can refer to that at a moment's notice.
Bruce?
Yeah?
Will you come into my office?
Yeah, right away, as soon as I finish this paperwork.
When a supervisor is in a situation of observing an employee that may be under the influence, their first thought needs to be in preserving human life, that employees and the public safety. So they need to look at their overall responsibility to the community and make the determination that they should sit down with that employee and talk to them.
It can show up in behavior, it can show up in work performance, attendance, fluctuating mood, the way that they look, the way they appear in the workplace, a change in their work ethics. Frequently you'll see changes in how they relate to their coworkers, and so when someone is having problems, frequently their coworkers will respond to help them, but eventually they expect them to do their job and return to productive behavior and work performance. And so fights, adversarial relationships, but really a deviation in what's normal for them.
Bruce, I've been watching you today. You're not acting like yourself. Do you feel all right?
Definitely approaching an employee with a question, not accusatory, and letting the employee explain why they may be having symptoms that are being observed, and let the employee explain them rather than going to the employee and accusing them of being under the influence.
Well, first of all, I think being able to approach an employee about concerns that you have of whether they're fit for duty or whether there's reasonable suspicion to intervene with them or question them, by nature is uncomfortable. Some supervisors will feel that I have to have proof, or that if I'm wrong, that then there's going to be liability, and there really isn't any of that. But it should be done in a way that probably the supervisor has told his people previously. So in terms of policy reviews, being able to say to the employees, these are the kinds of things that reasonable suspicion would get you to meet me and pull you aside and talk with you. So smelling of alcohol, or stumbling or repeating things, or looking like you're just not fit for duty will result in me meeting with you. So I think if they've kind of paved the road a little bit to be able to tell people they don't want to do that, but if I see these kinds of things, I'll be pulling you aside. So when they get to the point that they have those concerns, they can say to the employee, when we did that safety training recently and we reviewed the drug policy, I had told you that if I saw these things, I would want to meet with you and find out what they meant. And so they aren't feeling like they then have to give them a break and that they've been forewarned, and so they feel a little bit more comfortable approaching them. If there's concerns for someone's fitness for duty, there could be other things going on with them. They could be having a stroke, they might have diabetic problems, there could be other medical issues, or there's a loss issue going on in their life, they haven't been sleeping. So intervention can happen for many other reasons other than drug or alcohol abuse.
Bob, let's go to my office.
Not now, I got to get a load to Memphis.
I'll assign your load to another driver. I need to talk to you in my office, in private. It's important, Bob.
Well, for employers to make a successful contact with an employee that they have suspicions of using and coming to the employment site under the influence would be to approach the employee and say, would you mind stepping into my office for a few minutes? There's something I would like to talk to you about. And getting the employee into a safe situation where the employee is not embarrassed. So that's the first step.
When a supervisor is getting to the point that they're really, wanting to sit an employee down and talk with them specifically about their performance, I think they need to realize that that person's scared and they're in denial. So they may tell stories and they may lie because they're feeling threatened. And also the nature of drug abuse and addiction really is denial. It's kind of like having cataracts. They don't really know they have the problem. They know their boss is a jerk. They know their wife complains too much. They know they've got these other problems, but they don't see their drinking as contributing.
Sending a driver for reasonable suspicion testing may be one of the hardest things you'll have to do as a supervisor. But as difficult as it is, it's also one of the most important. Doing so could save a life. Before removing a driver from safety-sensitive functions for reasonable suspicion testing, the regulations require that you personally observe the behaviors that indicate alcohol abuse or controlled substance use. These behaviors may be as obvious as seeing a driver take a drink on the job, or as subtle as changes in work habits or appearance. You can't send a driver for reasonable suspicion testing based on what you hear from others or a gut feeling that is not accompanied by observation. And you must document your reasons in writing. When you confront a driver who you believe must be tested, do so as soon as you make the observations that trigger the test. Delay is not an option. Also, this conversation should occur in a private setting. You must respect and protect the driver's right to privacy, both in the conversation and in the documents you prepare to support your decision to send the driver for testing. Beyond the regulations, it's important that you know your company's policy regarding drivers who admit to abusing alcohol or using drugs. But you should also know that your primary duty, whether based on a driver's admission or your own observations, is to get the impaired driver off the road. The drivers who work for your company already know that drinking or using controlled substances and driving don't mix. But they're less familiar with the testing procedures designed to protect us all from impaired drivers. Alcohol and drug testing, driver awareness training, covers the regulations that govern testing and demonstrates how tests are conducted. In short, this program takes the mystery out of alcohol and drug testing for commercial motor vehicle drivers. In the program, various types of tests required by the regulations are reviewed, including pre-employment testing, post-accident testing, random testing, reasonable suspicion testing, return-to-duty testing, and follow-up testing. And the role of the substance abuse professional, the SAP, in the follow-up to a failed alcohol test or a positive drug test result is also reviewed. Drivers are shown the process of a breath alcohol screening test and a breath alcohol confirmation test, so they'll know what to expect when they go for testing. On the controlled substances side, drivers will observe another driver at a test facility and the follow-up procedures that are triggered by a positive test result. Your drivers will learn about the role of the medical review officer, the MRO, in verifying and communicating the results of a positive controlled substance test to the drivers and to the employer's representative. And they'll hear about the care employers must take to ensure that their privacy is respected and protected during testing and in handling the results. Finally, after viewing this program, your drivers will have a clear understanding of the types of tests conducted, the ways in which their rights are protected during these tests, and the consequences of failing an alcohol test or having a positive test result for controlled substances.